John and Mike, oh here we go. Ready for the Jen and Mike show. Topics made easy, caught in the flow. Let's dive in with Jen and Mike, yo.
Ever heard of a place called Black Wall Street?
Black Wall Street?
Yeah, Black Wall Street. It's well, it was this really incredible community.
Where was this?
In Tulsa, Oklahoma, back in the 1920s.
Okay.
It's a story that, well, it's really both tragic and inspiring at the same time. Tragic because of what happened, but also so inspiring because of the resilience of the people.
Sounds like we're going to be uncovering some deep history today. What exactly are we diving into?
Right. So we're going to be uncovering the story of Black Wall Street and the devastating event that became known as the Tulsa Race Massacre. We're going to use this source here, the devastation of Black Wall Street, to understand not just what happened, but also the lives of the people who built this amazing community.
Yeah, I think it's so important to remember that these historical events involved real people with real lives.
Absolutely. So imagine this. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. You've got this thriving black community called Greenwood. And get this, they had everything. Doctors, lawyers, schools, a bustling business district. I mean, they even had their own newspaper. It was truly remarkable.
It's amazing how, even in the face of widespread segregation and discrimination, Black communities like Greenwood were able to create these spaces of success.
It really speaks to their spirit, doesn't it? They built this incredible community from the ground up. And this source really brings it to life, describing Greenwood as this bustling hub of activity. You know, theaters, restaurants, barbershops, you name it, they had it. All Black owned and operated.
And this wasn't just by chance, right? The source points to the Great Migration, where millions of Black Americans left the South seeking better opportunities. Many ended up in places like Tulsa, contributing to the growth of Greenwood.
Right, and this migration, coupled with the discriminatory practices that kept Black people out of white businesses, forced them to create their own economies, their own spaces where they could thrive.
And thrive they did, which sadly seemed to fuel resentment among some segments of the white population in Tulsa at that time.
You're right. And this leads us to the incident that would tragically ignite the massacre. A story about a young Black shoe shiner named Dick Rowland and a white elevator operator named Sarah Page.
This part of the story is really interesting and heartbreaking because there are conflicting accounts of what actually happened in that elevator.
Exactly. And this source lays those accounts out. One witness said they saw Rowland trip and accidentally touch Page's arm. But then you have the Tulsa Tribune, the local newspaper, publishing a story alleging a much more serious incident.
And you can imagine how, in that era, fueled by existing racial prejudice, that kind of inflammatory reporting would have a dangerous ripple effect.
Absolutely. It's like, you know, throwing a match on a powder keg.
So, fueled by these unfounded accusations, a white mob full of, well, racial hatred descends upon Greenwood, and they begin to destroy everything in their path. It's hard to even imagine the terror that the residents of Greenwood must have felt as this mob, fueled by hatred and misinformation, tore through their community.
The source does a really powerful job of capturing the horror of that night. Homes and businesses set ablaze, gunfire echoing through the streets, families fleeing for their lives, desperately searching for safety.
And what's even more appalling is that, according to the source, instead of protecting the residents, the local law enforcement often joined in on the violence. Some reports even suggest that they deputized white citizens, handing them weapons. Can you imagine?
It's unfathomable. And the aftermath, as you can imagine, was devastating. Thousands were left homeless, their entire lives, their businesses, their homes, all reduced to rubble.
The source really drives home the generational trauma that resulted from this event. This wasn't just about physical rebuilding. It was about trying to heal from an unimaginable collective trauma. And for many, that healing continues today.
It's a wound that runs deep. Yeah. And what makes it even more tragic is that for decades, there was this deliberate attempt to bury this story, to erase it from the history books.
You're absolutely right. This source does a good job of highlighting how little was written, how few official records exist. The silence surrounding the Tulsa Race Massacre for all those years speaks volumes about the systemic racism that's woven into the fabric of our history.
And that's why it's so important for us to be having these conversations, to be bringing these stories to light. The Tulsa Race Massacre is a story of immense loss, but also of incredible resilience.
It truly is. I mean, despite losing everything, The people of Greenwood rebuilt their lives, rebuilt their community. They kept the spirit of Black Wall Street alive.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
how do we honor the memory of those who suffered and died in the Tulsa Race Massacre? And not just with words, but with actions. How do we create a future where these kinds of atrocities are never repeated?
That's the real question, isn't it? How do we ensure that history doesn't keep repeating itself? And I think it starts with acknowledging the past, understanding the systemic issues that led to events like the Tulsa Race Massacre, and actively working to dismantle those systems.
It's a conversation that we need to continue having, a responsibility we all share to learn from the past and fight for a more just and equitable future.
Absolutely. The story of Black Wall Street is a powerful reminder that we must never forget, and we must always strive to do better.
We must always strive to do better.
John and Mike, oh here we go. Ready for the Jen and Mike Show. Topics made easy, caught in the flow. Let's dive in with Jen and Mike, yo.